And I will turn the mic to Bruce, our landscape architect, to introduce himself.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bruce Jett with Jett Landscape Architecture and Design. Founded the company back in 1999, and the second project that came to us was an affordable housing project. And we've been designing landscapes for affordable housing projects of many types since then. We will be working with everyone to design the streetscapes and the courtyards, any perimeter landscaping, and any of the various amenities that we will be talking to you more about later today. I'm looking forward to the session, and thank you for letting me be here.
All right, so as we say, we will have a quick recap of kind of where we got or where we are today, excuse me. So just some key milestones and some initial community outreach to date. So the Los Altos City Council and the county signed a memorandum of understanding in January of 21. There were subsequently 3 forums, 2 hosted by the city and county. And in between the months of June, July, and August, EAH had some direct outreach virtually to some key stakeholders. So at Community Forum 3, we did a little bit of recap on those meetings. We dived a lot into the housing need. And then we talked about our vision, some initial design concepts, and have some frequently asked questions. And all that information is posted on our website, and we will share the link at the end, the recording, the frequently asked questions, and the slide deck. This slide here just shows some, but not all, of some of the key stakeholders that we have met with over the past couple of months. And again, these meetings were just some introductory meetings to talk about the affordable housing and get some initial thoughts. And so this is what we discussed, and this is kind of our vision that we discussed at some of the meetings. So it's a 90-unit affordable housing development, 100% affordable rental, 5 stories, a variety of unit sizes, a variety of area median income targeted units, and an integrated housing model, which allows for family and with a set aside for special needs households. And so these are some takeaways from Community Forum 3, what we called our listening session. So we did a word cloud exercise, and how this works is we ask a question, the respondents or the attendees type in a response, and what you see in the middle and kind of in the center are maybe some reoccurring themes. So for instance, you see community, trees, downtown, parks. That was what the word cloud produced, and with some of the community respondents, put in when you talk about what do you love about Los Altos. The next one we did was speaking specifically about the neighborhood surrounding the site at 330 Distel Circle. And what I pulled from here was transit, retail, walkability, restaurants, transit. Again, it transits on there probably 5 or 6 times. So I think we kind of get, this is a great site surrounded by a lot of great amenities and necessities. And then after we did the word cloud and had a quick presentation, we broke into 2 smaller rooms. So we had an EAH room and a KTGY room. And this is just kind of reporting out about what we heard in our focus discussion. So these are some of the major takeaways, some of the reoccurring themes that we heard. We talked about the parking solution. We are proposing a puzzler stacking system and the number of units. A little bit about tenant selection, timeline, resident services. You can see it all here. What I will say so far to date has been we've been met with a lot of great excitement, positive energy, and community support for the development. So we really appreciate it. One of the major kind of key takeaways and allows us to, move forward a little bit. We still have a lot of work to do, obviously, but we're going to go with the integrated housing model. So again, this is something that gives us the most flexibility to serve the greatest segments of the varying population. Again, we spent a lot of time at the last meeting talking about need, the RENA numbers, the point in time count for currently unhoused individuals. And, we're very early in the process, but what this does is this really allows us to modify our program as we continue along the road. And I'll turn it over to Lily.
Thank you, Welton. We'd like to go through what we heard in our breakout session. So during our the last community forum, we walked through our site shown in pink with the white dashed line and our building massing. We identified our proximity to El Camino that you see on the bottom right corner and our desire to activate the frontage along Distel Circle. And our intent is to really engage the street and the neighborhood along that distal edge. We identified also separation from surrounding buildings in the next slide from our property line, and also the existing landscape buffers that you see in the dashed green line. We also shared the shape of our building, where you see there's a little bit more of an urban front along Distel Circle, and then a more private courtyard to the west for our residents. We also shared a study, shadow study throughout key times of the year, here you see, to help everyone understand the impact of our project on the surrounding context. We really want to think about how do we minimize shadowing, and how do we preserve access to daylight to our neighbors. These computer-generated diagrams illustrate shadows cast from our proposed 5-level building at key times of the year, summer and winter solstice, as well as the spring and the fall equinox. And due to the orientation of our site, our foundings show that we are casting a shadow on the Los Altos office plaza, and you see that in March and September at 9 a.m. early in the morning, and the Carl's Jr. to our north plan top right during the late afternoon at certain times of the year. However, we are not casting a shadow on our single family neighbors to the west, plan bottom left. So from all the diagrams we shared, we received some great feedback during that session. And in the next slide, we show some of our key takeaways. We heard that there was a desire to have more parking stalls in the project, but it was also acknowledged that we have a great site and that we are within walking distance to amenities. We also heard that our neighbors to the west would like to maintain visual privacy and light as well to and from our property, and noise control as well as sound attenuation from our property to our neighbors was also a topic of discussion. And we also heard the desire to create just more housing for people in need, and the request for, which I thought this was great, designing for the people who live here with resident-centric design principles. And last but not least, there was a strong desire to incorporate sustainable elements such as solar voltaics to the project, and just lots of landscaping. So thank you to all again who participated. These are items that we have taken into consideration in our current proposal, and that we will be sharing later on in our presentation. And this will be ongoing feedback that we will take as the design progresses. And along with the feedback that we received verbally, we also had some fun polls that we had everyone participate in. In the next couple of slides, we will be reviewing our polling results. We asked the community, what design elements can our 330 Distel community add to the neighborhood? And we heard that benches and street trees were 2 key elements that you would like to see incorporated. We also asked if there were 2 sustainability strategies that were to be prioritized, what would those be? And the top 2 were energy efficiency and water efficiency. So thank you for that. And then lastly, this is always fun, if we were to incorporate an art element, what would that be? And the 2 art elements, top 2 29% neck and neck, were some sort of painted mural or sculptural seating, followed by some sort of sculptural 3D element or filtering screen. And so that wraps up the feedback that we received from the Community Forum 3. And all that information will really help us continue to prioritize the goals as we proceed throughout the process. So we will now, I think, jump into just addressing some of the feedback provided. And since transportation was a key takeaway in both breakout sessions, we would like to continue with talking about our transportation strategy a little bit more.
Thanks, Lily.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the site at 330 Distel Circle, this does represent a unique opportunity to address multiple transit needs, for low-income individuals and families. EAH and its partners always like to take, into consideration local public transportation, traffic patterns, design needs, commuter paths, and the environment. What we noticed from the word cloud from exercise 3 was sustainability. That's kind of what I pulled from a lot of, these words, the word cloud exercises. So what this shows, again, is just a simple representation of various alternative means of transportations, including cars, but other than cars that we can take advantage of at Distel Circle. So this bright fuchsia star down here towards the bottom is the site. And these radii represent 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, and 3/4 of a mile. And again, as we stated earlier, and the community also noticed that this is a great site. There are a lot of necessary amenities within walking distance. So about 1/4 mile, that's about a 4-minute walk, 4 to 5 minute walk. 1/2 mile, again, on average, an 8 to 10 minute walk. So within 1/2 mile, you have almost every necessary amenity that you know. And again, the purple represents bus stops. So what this shows, again, the green graphic in the middle is approximately where the site is located. And this is a VTA transit map, and everything on here that's in color is a transit line. So what you see here, not only do you have access to bus, but there is a zip car, shared car share service not too far away, and you are a short bus ride away to the downtown Mountain View transit station where you can connect to both Caltrain and VTA light rail. And one thing that we want to point out is the 522 rapid line for VTA. This is a bus that is about a 9-minute walk directly from the site. It runs every 15 minutes. It starts at 5:22 in the morning, and this runs along El Camino Real from Palo Alto to East San Jose. So I know another question that may be asked is, okay, there's a bus there, so what? How long does it take me to get some places, and how much does it cost? Because when you think about sustainability, you want something that's a little bit better for the environment, it's reliable, and it's cost efficient. So these are just a couple of sample routes to places near Los Altos that you can get to on the bus. And as you can see from the one-way fares, it's pretty cost effective. And just to zoom out a little bit, so up in the upper left-hand corner, you see a gold box, that's Los Altos. This is the entire VTA transit map. So what it kind of shows, and what we're hoping to show here, is that you can be connected via bus and other alternative means of transportation to a large portion of Santa Clara County. And some other transit engagement strategies that we are looking into are Smart Pass from VTA. So that's a free or discounted bus pass where you can use all of the services that VTA provides. Some on-site secure bike parking that's already built into our plans. And then there are some other options that we are still looking at, but aren't ready to dive into quite yet. And then we want to also talk a little bit about demand. So this is a site at Orchard Ranch in Morgan Hill as Estates that we recently built. I think it opened, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago, kind of lost a year, with COVID, but this is, again, a site at 9 o'clock in the morning. Again, this is a site at 9 o'clock at night. And I think what you'll notice, or maybe not notice, are cars. And so again, just to talk a little bit about the demand. So Transform, which is a Bay Area nonprofit, they performed a study of about 55 affordable housing developments across the Bay Area. And what that study showed was about 1 in 3 parking spaces in affordable housing goes unused. So this is kind of a graphical representation. So of the 4,700 spaces that Transform studied, what it showed was that historically, parking has been built at about a 1-to-1 space per unit ratio, but the usage really kind of averages out to about 0.65 spaces per unit. And now we have a resident testimonial from one of our residents. Her name is B.
Hi, my name is B. I live at Parkview Senior Apartments. I've been here, I think, 7 years, and at this time, I no longer drive. So I take the VTA bus. I help my daughter with my granddaughter and take her to school. So I usually ride the bus every morning, very early. If I'm not riding the bus, I get a ride from an older granddaughter or from a friend who also lives here. I find the VTA pretty convenient. It's very close to our apartment complex, less than 5-minute walk. So that works for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. So we do also understand and respect some of the community's concerns about our initial parking proposal. So what we have done is our design team has looked at the site, and what we are looking at now is an additional 12 spaces. That's a 25% increase for 60 spaces, and that gets you to about a 60.67 spaces per unit ratio, which I think, as we showed before, is kind of the historical demand. And excuse me, again, we definitely, we respect the concern. We also want to try to, keep the future in mind. And then also, a formal traffic study and circulation plan will be conducted. But what we hope is that when you look at everything that we've talked about, the location to the site, encouraging use of alternative transit, the walkability, the availability of sustainable transit, that this amount of parking should be sufficient to serve the needs of the residents. And then, so as we want to keep this a design-focused discussion, at least for now, I will turn it back over to Lily, and we will leave some time in the breakout rooms and Q&A, and we can bring this back up if you like. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Wilton. In this following section, we would like to walk you through where our design was before our last community forum. And then later on in the presentation, we'll go through, what we've done with the feedback that we've received. So prior to our last session, we proposed 90 units and 48 parking stalls. Here is the ground level plan. And a lot of thought was just put into the organization of the building and the amenities and the services. We wanted to celebrate the amenity, and are doing so by running it along our entire Distel Circle frontage, as you see in pink. And our goal is to create a visual connection from Distel through the building to the exterior courtyard. The amenity is planned to be constructed from mass timber, and the units that sit above are envisioned to be modular, and we can talk about that a little bit later. We also proposed the vehicular entry and the dedicated drive aisle along our eastern edge, as you see with the big blue arrow. That would be where a tenant would enter the site. And this is, in gray is the drive aisle with the parking tower in the northern corner top. And in this scenario, a tenant would drive in, turn to the left, either in a surface stall or the vertical parking tower. And we also proposed the courtyard on the western edge. As I described earlier, this is really in the center in the plan you see in green. And the thought is that it's a protected space away from the main street. We are proposing street trees along Distel, along with planting around our perimeter edges. And really, open space is so crucial for the communities that we create. The way the diagram is showing on levels 2 through 5, as you see here, is that the units either face outward or they face inward to this community open space that we've created. And here you see in kind of purple blue is our proposed balcony locations that we proposed pre-feedback. And primarily our strategy was to line the perimeter of our building except for where we have the vertical parking tower. And now that we walked through our plans and kind of oriented everyone, we would like to go through some high-level design concepts and strategies that we are proposing. There's 4 that I would like to go through, and then we would love to bring this to our breakout room later on today. So number 1 being construction flexibility. We are proposing the units to be modular, but have the flexibility for the units to be site-built on the project. Number 2, construction innovation, and we're proposing mass timber at the ground plane. 3, a vertical parking solution, and 4, sustainability. And these strategies will be topics that we'll be discussing further, not only in the breakout session, but as the design continues. So stepping more into detail about modular and construction flexibility, in order to build the units as efficiently as possible, we are proposing modular units. They would allow us to build off-site and reduce construction time while also reducing waste. And this project is also, as I mentioned, designed to be flexible. So if for whatever reason modular doesn't work, we can site build the project. Number 2, our second construction strategy was construction innovation via mass timber. And really, we envisioned this for the ground level space. The space at the ground level is really supposed to be more flexible and open, and we wanted to bring the warmth to the ground with this warm wood aesthetic. So, so we were proposing mass timber. There are so many benefits to mass timber, including being a renewable resource, reducing carbon footprint, faster construction time. So usually we're comparing to concrete. It's naturally warm, and we just felt like it was appropriate in the context and the neighborhood. And we were able really to entertain these different options for the ground level to create that mass timber base, because we made a decision early on for a vertical parking solution. So I can read minds. I figure you may be wondering, what is a vertical parking solution? What does that mean? Often you see cars parked side by side in a parking garage or outside. I would call this a horizontal solution. What we are proposing essentially is a mechanized car carousel that holds cars vertically stacked one above each other on flat pallets. The tenant, if I had to just give a scenario, the tenant would fob open as they drive in to open the gate for this vertical parking tower, drive into the ground level space, leave the structure, during which the safety gate would close, and then the car is puzzled or moved to its designated location. So I just threw another term, a puzzler. What is a puzzler? So a puzzler system basically moves the car like a puzzle via horizontal and vertical movement to park and to retrieve the car. And why? Why would we do this? This allows us to save space with a compact structure, while also enabling us to maximize the amount of square footage that we're providing for housing. And as the demand for cars come down and we find that the parking is no longer needed, we have the future flexibility to remove the structure and to provide more units. And of course, my explanation may not be good enough. So we have visuals. I'm a very visual person. So we have a video to show, we have 2 videos to show how this works. This first one maps out what would happen if a tenant came in and had to park in one of these stalls. This is that safety gate I was talking about in a car, driving in, parking into one of the designated spaces and walking out, and the safety gate closing. And then the car being puzzled to its spot. We'd also like to share with you the other video. The second video shows quite a few different installations, many of them being local. And the manufacturer that we're considering has installed over 40,000 cars in the US and abroad. I know that these mechanized parking systems may be a new concept to you, but they have been installed for decades. And you probably passed by one and didn't even notice. We have actually a couple of them near our office. And on 4880 El Camino, just down the street, within 7 minutes walking distance from our 330 Distel site, is a multifamily project with this mechanized system installed. So you may be able to go in there and check out the system. I think a lot of people who see the system in action feel like then they can really understand how they function. And then here in the video, we go further into the 7-level system. Sorry, this video has a couple of kinks in it. We will show you how the 7-level system works. I will note that because of the floor-to-floor height of a puzzler is less than that of our floor-to-floor height for a typical unit level, that the 7-level puzzle is the equivalent of our 5-level building in height. And here you see it working in the 7-level puzzler. And you can see how it shifts horizontally and vertically to bring that car down to ground level. And as much as we can talk on and on about mechanized parking systems, we'd also like to touch upon our last strategy, number 4, that we would like to bring to the project. And that is very important to us, is creating a sustainable building and a sustainable community. So a couple of facts. The urban built environment is responsible for 75% of the annual global greenhouse gas emissions. And buildings alone account for 39% of that. And we are always striving to make an impact and a dent in these numbers. So for our project, we intend to bring forth a holistic sustainable outlook from design all the way to construction. And a couple of things that we're thinking about, as you see in the image here, is solar or roof panels, so photovoltaics. The garden courtyard, which will likely have drought tolerant plants and stormwater mitigation. As I mentioned before, our amenity is made from mass timber, and mass timber is, it's a sustainable resource, it's wood. And we also want to provide, green transportation via bicycle storage. So those are just a couple of things that we'd like to touch upon. We actually have other ones we would like to incorporate, in the building, whether it's energy efficiency lighting, or high efficacy lighting, or dual pane windows and whatnot. So, and here is our proposed view at the southeast corner of Distel, looking towards El Camino. Here you can see at the ground plane is that mass timber, which the columns kind of span quite a distance apart, which allows us to have
all
storefront
Californians are
glazing.
all registered voters. On that metric, this thing.
Hello. Oh, sorry. Not sure what happened there. So you could see the storefront glazing from column to column and then the modular units above. And then present day, what we did with the information we heard. So we'd like to share with you our current plans. Our proposed level 1 plan, as Walton mentioned earlier, has 90 units and 60 parking stalls. As you can see on the far right corner, on the next page, sorry, back one, there you go, is our vertical parking solution, and we'll go into that further. Our proposed design still has the plan that has a courtyard in the center. In order to gain a little bit more space for the additional stalls, we're taking a little bit from the courtyard, but that actually also helps us with sound mitigation from the courtyard. Next slide. And similar to our previous plan here, you see all the units. So our units will occupy most of levels 2 through 5, except for where you see the vertical parking tower on the eastern corner in gray. Here we're walking through the scenario of what happens, and when a tenant wants to drive in, we still have our entry along that eastern edge. In the big blue line, you can see how someone could drive in. There's a dedicated drive aisle in the center, and a tenant would either choose to go left into the surface stalls or to the right in the vertical parking structure. So as you notice, the vertical parking structure is all along that north and eastern edge now, since we've maximized the amount of parking that we can provide. We've also heard that, mitigated courtyard acoustics was important. And so, as I mentioned before, the building is kind of turning in a little bit, and that allows some privacy to the courtyard, but also some privacy to our neighbors to the west. And then we heard that visual and light impact was a concern from our western neighbors. So we have stepped back our 5th level at that corner to be sensitive to that neighboring edge. And then here are a couple of potential balcony locations that we're looking at. As you may remember from the previous slide, and that since our design has been modified to basically try to consider where other balconies could be and where they are not. And so we are not proposing to provide any balconies on that western edge, top left. And then if you remember the polling results that we talked about early on in the presentation today, there are things that we want to touch upon. And if we were to incorporate some sort of sculptural seating or mural, where would that be? And here's a slide to show, 3 potential locations. 1, outdoor, outside the multi-purpose room. 2, outdoor between street trees. Or 3, indoor in the amenity leasing area. And then if we were to incorporate some sort of mural, where would that be? 1, inside the multi-purpose room. 2, inside somewhere in the amenity leasing. Or 3, outside as a piece of the parking tower. And here again is our view from Distel. So we've talked through quite a few things today. What we'd like to do is to bring our discussion further and to hear your thoughts in our breakout rooms. In our breakout room topics, we have 4 topics that follow the strategies that I just discussed. 1, construction flexibility via modular or site-built units. 2, construction innovation via mass timber. 3, our vertical parking solution, and 4, sustainability. We also, so our breakout session will be a designated amount of time, and Clarice will be walking us through all of that.
Great, thank you so much, Lily. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Clarice Veloso Lugo with EAH Housing. And for the question and answer portion of tonight's program, we will be breaking this larger group into two groups. And the goal is to make sure that we're able to address all of your questions. You will be randomly assigned to either breakout room 1 or 2. Yours truly will be moderating room 1, and my colleague Kristen Taylor will be moderating room 2. So the breakout discussion is set for 20 minutes, and at about 18 minutes, you should see a pop-up on the screen reminding you that the breakout rooms will close, and everyone will be automatically directed back to the main room. So just a quick note, we anticipate having a really robust conversation this evening. So we ask that you keep your questions short, at 1 minute max, if possible. Also, please share your top thought and allow others to speak. So lastly, to maximize audience participation, we ask that someone from the audience, from breakout room 1 and 2, report back when we all come back to the main room. And with that, if we don't have any questions about logistics on breakout rooms, Kristen will push the button and we will all see everyone back here in 20 minutes. Hello, welcome back to the main room, everyone. For those of you who were in breakout room number 1, we didn't get a chance to assign a volunteer. Do we have any takers? Anyone? Sophia, am I seeing any hands? Okay, well, how about breakout room number 2? Do you guys want to report on first?
I'm willing to do that. This is Gary Hedden.
Thanks, Gary.
So we had 25 participants, and there were a lot of questions about parking. Parking is high on the list. Are there enough spots? How is it working in other projects that have been built? And let's see, street parking is impacted. So has that been addressed? Just as way of background, I'm active with Greentown Los Altos, so I know that transportation is a big factor in terms of greenhouse gas emissions and all that. So we do want to try to encourage people to ride a bike, and I think that's one of the advantages of this unit is close to downtown, and people who live here might actually bike to downtown. So that is something to think about. We also had questions about the modular, the advantages of stick versus modular construction. The modular allows the construction to take place off-site, so that reduces the noise and the number of trucks that are driving to the site. So there will be some benefits there. It allows some flexibility as well. And I'm not sure what the economics, I wasn't sure whether it's going to be cost effective or not. There were questions about the green space. The landscape architect is looking hard at making a nice outdoor space with gardens and bocce ball court, and they're going to reach out to the residents and see what would work for them. There was another question about LEED. Will it be LEED? What level? It'll be equivalent to LEED Silver. It may or may not be certified. That actually adds a lot of cost to it. If you can become LEED Silver and not be certified, that's still a good thing. And let's see, the couple of quick questions at the end. Will the roofs, the green roofs have live foliage? That will be considered. And the timber, will that be something the residents, the recycled timber, is that something residents really want? So that will be considered. I'm just scanning my notes. It was quick. There was a lot that we covered, and I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss something. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
I think that's great. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, going back to group 1 or breakout room 1, Roberta, were you volunteering? Are you volunteering to report, or did you have a question? Okay, well, Welton, did you want to report on our group's behalf?
Oh, Roberta's unmuted. Roberta,
No, I was in group 2.
oh,
I
okay.
did want to comment that the parking was the main question. And, you know, if we want people to be inclusive in the community, we do not have public transportation to go into downtown Los Altos, the library, the community center. And although Gary Herron, who I know well, I know he's part of Greentown, that was not the sentiment of the discussion that we had in breakout room 2. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right, Roberta. There was a lot of concern about not just parking, but the transportation. The buses do go downtown, but they don't go downtown often enough to be very useful. I agree with you on that.
Thanks again, Gary. Welton, did you, I didn't write down some notes while we were at the breakout room. Do you want to do a quick recap?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it. So we had some discussion. Actually, one of our future neighbors was there, so he had some comments, some good comments about lighting at the adjacent parking lot that kind of separates this site and the other site. There were some questions about the puzzler system, you know, the noise, the queuing time. There was a little bit of a conversation about the amenity space, the open space for the residents, and how will that be activated. Of course, there were conversations about parking and the number of units and the placement of parking. And there may have been some other topics, but that was kind of the overarching conversation. Feel free to jump in if I left anything out.
I think there's also talk about perhaps a roof garden. I don't know if you mentioned that. And then also just, yeah, positioning of where our parking tower was. I know you already mentioned that, so.
All right, great. So we have about 20 minutes. I'd like to spend 5 wrapping up. So if we want to take the next 10 or 15 minutes to again, take some additional comments and feedback, we will start. Whoever's monitoring the chat, please ask questions as they arise and let folks who raise their hand speak.
We have a raised hand from Salim. Salim, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, hi. I love the project. I think it's great. I also like how you guys synthesized community input at the last meeting. The only thing I don't like about the project is how long it's going to take. So 2025 is like super far out from now. And we know housing insecurity is an issue today. So my question is actually for the city. So I'm curious, I'd like to ask someone from the city, why is it that we can't use SB 35 to expedite this project?
Well, we wanted to, this is John Biggs, good evening, everyone. We wanted to really make sure that we had a project that was vetted really well through the community, that had a lot of opportunities for the community to provide comments and input on. And we felt that the process that we're going through right now with the community workshops, the typical process that we would go through with holding planning commission hearings and city council hearings was one that would allow the most public participation in this project so that the community really had a good understanding and feel for what was being requested, any exceptions that were being asked for, and just a better overall concept of what was coming forward.
And then a quick follow-up question. Was this a city council decision?
No, it was a collective decision. I think everyone understood the importance of achieving affordable housing in Los Altos, but also achieving it in a manner that the community as a whole could be proud of. So we felt that this was a really good way to go about doing this. And we said early in the process that we wanted community feedback early, the opportunity for the community to share its thoughts and ideas before an application was turned in, so that so people were less in a reaction mode, rather they were more in a participatory mode as this project goes through its design and review process.
And sorry, just to clarify, when you say it was a collective decision, does that include the city council?
It was collected between the city, the county, and EAH housing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Salim, and thanks, John. We have a comment regarding the puzzler system that I just wanted to read out real quick. Puzzlers are awesome. It's coming from Janine Velades. Puzzlers are awesome. I'd rather wait at the bottom floor for my slot in the queue rather than sit on my car inside the parking structure, waiting in line, breathing fumes. They're also safer for cars. Kristen, if you're monitoring the chat, do you see any questions that I haven't seen or read out yet?
I have some from the beginning. I mean, a lot of it is about the puzzler system and just wondering if there are some circumstances in which folks may not be able to get to their cars, or are there generators built in and so forth.
I can take that. We had a similar question actually. So yes, our intent is always to keep our residents safe. And as architects, we're all about life safety. In the event of an emergency, our goal is to get everyone out of the building. Forget the car. Think about yourself, think about your family, and get outside safely. And that goes for a parking structure, right? The gates close. It's not like you enter, you exit the parking garage. You leave, and then the parking is secondary. But yes, our projects, because there is 4 levels, more than 4 levels, we will likely be providing a generator. And that generator typically is used during emergencies for emergency lighting. Your refrigerator is out and you don't want everything to go bad. Certain things that are, we have, maybe residents that need power for, life-saving, technology. And so that's where the generator goes typically. Can it operate the system? Likely, yes.
Thanks, Lily. I see a hand raised. Susan Russell, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, I just thought that the puzzler sounds great. And I was especially impressed when she explained that it's only as noisy as a dishwasher. So I thought that was very good news.
Thanks, Susan. Follow-up question from Janine. Will there be charging systems for electric cars in the puzzler?
So yes, the puzzlers are able to be electric, have EV charging on, in any of the stalls. We haven't defined the quantity yet, but what California code requires us to do is to have a certain percentage that is EV ready, which means that at any point, a certain percent will have, is able to be converted. The quantity of EV charging stalls, we haven't gotten further enough in the design to determine, but it's a possibility.
So I have a question, actually really interesting question from Warren Ritter. And I don't know who's going to be, who can answer this, but would increasing headway on existing bus lines along Distel help resolve the lack of public parking in the area?
Thanks for that question, Warren. Along El Camino Real, again, I think as we pointed out, the 522 rapid bus along that corridor does run about every 15 minutes for most of the day. Again, there are other connectivities. And then, another thing just to kind of, kind of thinking as we get some of the feedback about getting to downtown Los Altos specifically is, this is a partnership with the city. This isn't a EAH, coming in and just building affordable housing. This is a building that once it's built is going to be there, forever. So, and it'll be affordable forever as long as EAH is involved. So, we have to work with the city and work with the community to figure out other ways because we can't, it's affordable housing. Our rents are going to be anywhere from $1,100 to a little over $2,000 for a family of 4 at a 2-bedroom, and sometimes even lower. So, we're not in a position to subsidize a vehicle per se, but maybe we could work with the city for other alternative ways to get to downtown, like a shuttle. I think somebody mentioned in one of the breakout rooms. So these are, again, conversations that we need to continue to have as a partnership with everybody.
Thanks, Walton. I have a bike question. Is the bike parking indoors, out of the rain, and safe from theft?
Very good question. We have a designated bicycle parking room that we were providing quite a few bicycle stalls, and we're maximizing, actually, to the point we'll have double stackers for bicycle stalls. So just maximizing the room and the quantity that we can fit. Whether or not we will also have ones that are outdoors has yet to be determined.
Thanks, Lily. Back to you, Kristen. Any questions that I haven't seen so far, or raised hands for that matter?
I don't see any raised hands right now. We do have some questions around, can you elaborate a little bit more about how a 5-story building with 90 units will be sustainable and organic within this landscape of Los Altos?
I think with that, we are trying to provide most housing units that are, it's just very valuable and very needed in the city. And we're trying to make it as sustainable as it can be for a 5-story building.
I have a question about amenities. So what amenities are there for elderly or disabled residents?
Good question. So we have a variety of amenities, so they're a little bit more flexible. So we have that multi-purpose room, kind of leasing lobby, co-work. I think, for us, it's that all the residents can be able to use the spaces. We're designing it so that, it's inclusive to all kind of different age ranges. And it's really the function that goes inside, right? What's happening in the multi-purpose room. But I would say that in terms of accessibility and being able to go to any of these spaces, there will be accessible to all the residents. And actually our units themselves, is a little bit of a sidebar question, but our units themselves will be accessible. And certain ones will be designated as fully built out and fully, accessible to someone in a wheelchair. And to also add to that, there are requirements for accessible parking spaces that we are required as architects to provide. So those will be provided for people who have disabilities that need a certain amount of space and a certain amount of access to their stuff.
And I'd also like to add, and I'll kick this over to Kristen. We do serve a lot of residents that have disabilities, and we do connect them with services. We help them get to where they need to go. Again, Chris is our services director, and she can chime in on that a little bit.
Yeah, certainly, as far as programming activities and community events, we'll build in a very robust program that is based on all sorts of resident input, the families, all of the residents who will be living there. And so we'll definitely look forward to hearing more on that in the upcoming meeting, so we can design some really incredible programming.
And we also tailor it to who ends up living there, so there, we design it and think about it as serving as many people as we can, but then we also have to tailor some things once the community gets in and gets settled in to who actually lives there. So we, it's an ongoing kind of nebulous process as we move forward. I think I did see a question. There will be an elevator. So again, it's fire code and then life and safety. The backup generator will be sized to be able to, if the power goes out, operate the elevator to get people out. And then able for you to retrieve your car if you're needed. But again, if it's a real emergency, the real goal is for us to get people out of the building if needed.
Great, thanks, Walton. I have a question from Fabio, and I think this similar question was asked at breakout room number 1, but a question for the city. Why 90 units for such a small site? 5 stories. A 5-story building is not organic with the rest of the landscape and architecture for Los Altos. I want affordable housing, but we should not have more not have more organic and sustainable mixed housing strategy instead of trying to build monster five-story buildings. Anyone from the city want to take that?
Sure, I'll take it. This is John again. We started with the underlying zone district for the site, which is CT, and that zone district provides a height limit of 45 feet. And within 45 feet, you could potentially have a 4-story building. Coupled with the underlying zone district, the city has in place along the lines of the state's regulations, a set of density bonus rules that allow for exceptions to some of our site development standards like height limits if they provide affordable housing units. This is a 100% affordable housing project, so it would be appropriate in this instance to grant an exception to one of our development standards, the one that is going to provide the most in terms of affordable housing units would be an exception to the height limit. And we do have a cap embedded in our density bonus regulations, the city's density bonus regulations, that limits an exception to that height limit of 11 feet. So 56 feet in height is about the maximum you can have on the El Camino Real or near the El Camino Real in the CT zone district. So coupled with the underlying zone district, the density bonus regulations, some of the projects along the El Camino Real that have been built already, some of them that have been entitled and are in line to be built, we felt that this was an acceptable height limit to bring forward for a project like this to maximize the number of affordable units on the project site.
Thanks for taking that question, John. Just wanted to read a few comments. The apartments across the street are 4-story. I think that was in relation to the last question from Ann Paulson. This is a great building. I love the mass timber, the balconies, the friendly look. And from Janine, with the setbacks and good tree screening, this will not be a monster project. This is so needed. And then from Marcy, who I don't think we've heard from yet this evening, Marcy Gersten. As a longtime Los Altos homeowner, I appreciate the density, design, and the intention of this project. Kristen, any questions that I'm not seeing?
I just have one last question, and it's around for the 2 and 3 bedroom units. Do we expect parents with kids, or will it also be open for multi-generational or unrelated adults? So can more than one adult live in a 2 or 3 bedroom?
You know, that's a question that I would need our property management team to unpack, because I'm not totally understanding, but you know, the occupancy standards are in California are 2+1, and whoever's on the lease, I don't think it necessarily has to be a nuclear family in the traditional sense. So I guess to answer the question is it could be, but we would have to, you know, dive into that a little bit more. And, you know, and we're also creeping up on time, and I want to respect everybody's time. Again, we really appreciate the feedback and everybody coming and spending their evening with us. Again, we are open to further dialogue directly with you. This is a community forum where we want to speak to kind of generalities and things of that nature. And again, we still have a lot of work to do. So we will take this and digest it, and we will move on to next steps. And again, reach out to us, reach out to me, Lily, the county, the city. Again, this is a partnership between the 3 of us, and we really appreciate the support so far from the community. So just a quick reminder of some of our next steps. So we do have an open house where this will be kind of another report out of what we have, you know, seen and heard from various meetings. This will be a live in-person event at Grant Park at 6 p.m. on September the 30th. Again, everybody here will receive a reminder. We'll send another e-blast. We do ask that if you are vaccinated, please come, and if you're not, we won't check, but we're just a friendly ask. We want to be safe. We want to socially distance. We want to wear a mask, all the good stuff. So there we'll have, again, this is more of a live in-person event. You can come and talk to us, meet us, have a more organic conversation. We'll have representatives from all of our departments there, and the architect will be there as well. Following that, again, this is a tentative date. This is not locked in, but here are other ways for you to participate in the process. There'll be a planning commission and city council joint study session. Again, this date hasn't been locked in, it's tentative. And our plan, if we can, it's an aggressive plan, but we are still trying at this point to get an entitlement package in November, because this really kind of kicks off a remainder of the process. You know, we need to get the financing in order. It's affordable housing. It's a very complicated puzzle to put together. And we really can't start that. In addition to the, you know, just to take a step back, we are starting on a very solid foundation with the county and the city providing an immense amount of resources to kind of get us started. But we do need to leverage those in order to bring this fully to fruition. So this is, again, a tentative timeline where we will be working through the entitlement process through you know, a good portion of this year and next year. And once that's done, we can go out and continue to try to leverage the resources that have been so graciously committed to this development, and hopefully start construction in early 23 and be fully leased up by early 2025. So again, this is the, if you see here at the bottom, eahhousing.org/330 Distel Circle, we will post the recording, the stack. We will create a FAQs from a lot of the comments that we heard today, and all that will be posted there. It'll also be posted on the City of Los Altos website once we get everything cleaned up and ready to go. And then again, 330 Distel Circle at eahhousing.org is a way to reach out directly to our team. We would love to hear from anybody else who wants to talk. We're willing to have additional Zoom meetings, whatever you guys need. Just reach out to us, reach out to the county, reach out to the city. We are here to talk. You know, we want to make this a welcoming environment to the future residents, and we want to be a good neighbor. So with that, we will bid you all a good evening and see you on the 30th.